Hello, welcome to CCO's webinar over the Oklahoma Open Meetings and Records Act, keeping you legal and keeping you sane. My name is Chris Welch. I'm a technical assistant specialist here at CCO. My educational background is meetings and destinations management and also organizational leadership. I have 8 years of experience working here at CCO. Trained, spoken, organized, and I've overseen more than 50 infrastructure projects in our Cherokee community. So most of you are pretty aware of me by this point. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about, and is very important in our daily lives of doing our daily business with our nonprofit organizations, is the Oklahoma Open Meetings Act. If you're an Oklahoma nonprofit, you're here locally. This is something that we need to follow as a public organization. There's always a lot of questions about this. Can I do this? Can I not do that? But we're going to talk to you guys about that today. Our agenda, we're going to talk about why do we need to know this. Mostly it's the law, so we do need to know this. We'll talk a little bit about the history of the act, kind of give you guys an outline of why it's here, when it was created, and why it was created. Talk to you about the public body of it, kind of all the do's and don'ts and what we need to do and what constitutes a meeting. That's always a big issue. And electronic communication, I know with this day and age that comes in a lot, is because we've got the smartphones and tablets and FaceTime videos and all these sort of things to try to go. So we'll dive into that. I'll be honest, the act isn't up completely as technology changes, but there is a few ways that we can make this happen. And we'll get into agendas and notifications, and then public comments and how to deal with those. And then, of course, as we always do with my trainings, we'll end with the closing circle. Here's some of our workshop goals. What this session will accomplish is we want to build a foundation and knowledge about the Oklahoma Open Meetings and Records Act. We want to review the key points for a nonprofit, because that's what we are here. We're not for-profit organizations. We're public entities. We're public nonprofit community service organizations. So we want to answer those questions, and we also want to answer questions that keep you up at night. The reason you guys text us, email us, give us phone calls, we want to have this reference here for you guys to go back and look at, so you guys don't have to worry about these things as much as you used to. It's very simple, it's very easy, the rules are easy. So we'll go over and show you guys how simple it really is. Next thing I want to talk to you guys about is what we won't accomplish today. We're not your legal advisor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a paralegal. I'm not anything like that. But we do know these things, and we do want to keep you guys up to date. But again, we're not a legal advisor. We will not help you get around things. That's not the reason for this today, is not to help you get around the law, to find loopholes. There's no loopholes here. So let's dive into this. First of all, it's the law. This was found in the Oklahoma statutes, as you can see here, Title 25, Section 301 through 314. Any action taken in willful violation of this act shall be invalid. It is a misdemeanor offense, so if you get caught in violation of this, it is a misdemeanor offense, and your organization can be fined up to $500 or up to 1 year in county jail. It's not a place we want to end up, so it's best just to follow these simple rules that they have for us as nonprofits. Just a little historical background to kind of let you guys know when, where, and how. This became a law on October 1st, 1977. It was the subject of at least 68 Attorney General opinions, so this has come before the courts before, so don't think that it never has. There's been 20 Oklahoma Supreme Court cases over this. 13 Oklahoma Court of Civil Appeals cases have gone into the Oklahoma Open Meetings and Open Records Act, and there's been 2 Court of Criminal Appeals. So just to let you know, this is a legal matter, and this is something that has hit our courts before here in the state of Oklahoma. Here's a little bit of the cornerstone of the act and public policy. It's a good starting place to is to understand the act. And the purpose of this is there's no guessing or hiding by the legislature. This was established to try to enforce transparency and to try to keep everybody legal. And as you guys all know, this is based on, you know, Robert's Rules of Order. It's slightly different, but it's very similar in a way. So if you know those kind of, if you know Robert's Rule of Order, you're probably in pretty good shape. But we will go over all that today so you're not confused. All this is clearly set forth. Absolutely, it's a law. It's been placed into where you need to follow these. So let's dive into the public policy then. All meetings should be held in public. Obviously, we need to be held in a common place that everyone can go to. Really discourage private residence and those sort of things. That's how you alienate people from your meetings. We'll talk about how to let everybody know about that here in just a minute. But you need to hold your meeting in a public place. If you have a community center or a church or anywhere that's considered a public domain, that would be the best place to hold your meetings. They need to be held at convenient times and places. Don't have them at 11 p.m. when only your group or night owls and stay up to do that sort of thing. Do it at a time and place that everybody, you know, it doesn't conflict with people's work schedules. Whenever it's not on a Sunday, you know, when most folks are attending church or having a family day, try to have a convenient time and place where most people can come to this time of meeting. It has to be open to the public. There's different ways if you need to have private conversations about employment or other individuals on the board. There's a way to do that. I'll talk to you about that. But your meetings need to be open to the public. And we'll talk to you about what makes that a public meeting here in just a little bit. And you should provide advance public notice of time, place, and subject matter. Post agendas in places, and we'll talk to you about all the rules and regulations that go with that. But you do need to post agendas, use social media, use different outlets that you might have at your disposal, but it needs to be made public. Now this is the public body defined. That's a question we get a lot, is what defines a public body? Governing bodies of all municipalities, boards of county commissioners, boards of public education, other boards, agencies, and public trusts. Okay, anything that's a foundation and corporation. Basically, if you've started an organization that's a nonprofit or a foundation of some sort through the Secretary of State's office, and you've got a letter of incorporation, you are a governing body of a public entity. So these are the rules and regulations you need to follow. Committees, subcommittees of those bodies too are regulated by these documents. So keep that in mind. If you have subcommittees and committees along different from your board of directors, keep that in mind. They have to follow these rules as well. Exceptions that go with this: judiciary, your court systems, your judges and things like that, legislature, staffs of public bodies, special statutory exceptions. Okay, those are some of the folks that have a little bit of leeway whenever it comes to these types of meetings, but keep that in mind. As I said before, if you're registered as an organization, as a foundation, nonprofit, and corporation, you are bound by those rules by the state of Oklahoma. Okay. What defines a meeting? When you conduct business of a public body, whenever you have a majority of your members that get together to talk about business, obviously that's defined as a meeting. Being personally together, okay? Whenever you get a majority of folks on your board together and you do talk about business, keep in mind, if it was just a casual meeting and you start talking about business, you're actually having a meeting. So you need to make sure that you're aware of that and be careful of those situations. A little bit more about the meetings here. A meeting does not include formal gatherings of a majority when no business of the public body is being discussed. I just said if you're a board of directors and it started off as a casual meeting, you start to discuss business, it then becomes a meeting. But If it's just general population, let's say it's a kid's birthday party, a wedding, just a public gathering at the park, and you guys are all together, that doesn't mean that you're having a meeting. That just means as long as you don't discuss any business of the organization in a majority setting, you're all good, okay? So don't worry about that. Is this a loophole? Maybe. Is it a trap door? Very much so, possibly. We'll leave that up to you to decide. There's a little caveat. Most of you guys know a caveat is a warning or a caution for an organization. That's what the dictionary tells us. So if the members of the public body are in actuality holding a meeting, conducting business by a majority of its members, they must comply with the requirements of the act, okay? Like I said, even if it's not on purpose, you guys dive into business in a casual setting, you guys just started yourself a meeting, so you do need to follow this act and need to follow through with this, okay? We're going to talk about the 4 types of meetings now. That's a big question for folks, is the different types of meetings, so we'll talk about that right now. There's regularly scheduled meetings, okay? That means dates must be on file with the local county clerk's office before the 1st of the year. You just give them the list, time, place, and date. You turn that into the county clerk's office. They stamp it for you. You've reported that for your regularly scheduled meetings for the year. That's the only public notice that you have to do of those meetings. Of course, you need to let your board members and those folks know ahead of time and post them in public places, and we'll cover that a little bit more here in a minute. Then there's special meetings. Each member of a special meeting must be notified 48 hours in advance of the meeting. They should only be held to complete a necessary item of the previous agenda. If you've had something that at that time you had to table because you didn't have all the information in front of you, and now you do have it a week later and it needs to get done, then yeah, you can have a special meeting, okay? That'll help knock those things off. Now keep in mind, that's the only thing that you should take care of, is just those items that weren't able to be taken care of at the meeting if you do have a special meeting. Again, give your members notified within 48 hours, post your agendas in public places so you guys can stay legal on this. Emergency meetings. This is another kind. A lot of things happen, especially if you have a facility. Let's say you have a water line break and you need to have an emergency meeting on how to pay the contractor that you had to call to come fix this. Each member must be notified 24 hours in advance of the meeting, okay? Instead of 48, this one's a little bit more urgency, so you do have to allow 24 hours to happen. It must be an emergency, and only that one specific item can be discussed during the meeting to make it an emergency meeting. If it can't wait till the next regular meeting, if it can wait, then it should wait, okay? Don't overuse this opportunity to have emergency meetings, because get in a habit of that, it's not quite, but it's a question of ethics at that point. And then the last one is continued or reconvened meetings, okay? If you have a time whenever you have to step away, or you didn't have a majority and you needed to push the meeting back, you can do that, reschedule it for a week later. Again, make sure you follow the notification rules and post your agendas. Let's get into votes. Now, there's different ways that you can do voting within your organization, especially during meetings, elections, and different things like that. So let's talk about that a little bit. A vote of each member must be publicly cast, okay, depending on however you want to do that. It raises questions, shall all the votes be roll call votes? That's up to you. There's different ways to do that. You can do roll call votes. You can do open voice. You can do raised hands. You can even do ballot casts if that's how you choose to do that. But it has everything needs to be done in a legal manner. So make sure you guys do that however you do it. Recorded. Failure to do so results in action being invalid. So if you have a vote and you don't actually take care of it there, then you need to make sure, in order for it to be a legal action, it has to be recorded and put into your meeting minutes. Okay, there's different types of voting. I just talked about that. As you can see in the picture, that's a raised hand vote. There's a standing vote. If you're yay or nay for whatever, you can stand up. You can do standing votes. You can do a ballot vote, a voice vote, which is most common. Yays or nays, usually with a voice vote. And you can do a roll call vote if you want to. You can call out individual names. So, but again, the most commonly used is the voice vote. So that's usually the one that most go with. During elections, a lot of people like to use the ballot vote. Some people prefer that for others to not know exactly how they voted on the action, on electing a new member or something like that. So you can, that's the most common thing during an election, if you have one, is to cast a ballot vote. Electronic and telephonic communication. Here's just a quick warning with this. Let's go over the guidelines with this. I know this is something that we would all like to do, but we need, especially with today's capabilities with our smartphones and our iPads and FaceTime and all those different things that go along with the communication we have these days. But here's a little warning on this. It prohibits deciding or taking action on any matter by phone or email. You can't just phone in or email. That is not allowable. It prohibits deciding or taking action on any matter. That might be a part of an informal gathering. Language in the act hasn't kept pace with technological advances. Okay, the language this has not been kept up with very well by the state legislature. Not as well as you would hope that it would. So be very careful with how you go into this. And the net result is stricter on board of directors of 3 members versus 5 or more. Again, legally 3 is the minimum that you're required to have by the state. We never recommend that. We recommend anywhere from 5 to 7, always being an odd number so you can break ties and votes. So keep that in mind, that the telecommunication regulations are stricter if you just meet the bare state minimum. The best practice is to not discuss any matter that could be construed as business via informal gathering, phone, email, or the internet or social media. It's just the best practice not to. But if you need to, I know that a lot of our boards are scattered. People have jobs, they have activities that they got to get their kids to and different things like that. So it is okay, but best practice not to do it all the time. I would do it in an emergency situation only, whenever you really need to get that answer done. But then again, there are some times that's the only way you can reach people is through social media or the internet, sending them a Facebook message or text message or something like that. So that's completely understandable, okay? And it cannot circumvent the act in any way. Okay, keep that in mind. I know there's a lot of stuff that goes with this portion of the training, but it's something that we all want to use, and it's best to know all the regulations that go along with it. Okay. Quick warning. Net result is stricter on board of directors again. And this is just an FYI for you. This is information that affects you. Meeting packets via email, that is something that you should do ahead of time, and that's okay. But be careful. Do not reply all in any email whenever they send you those sort of things that can constitute a meeting. So emails are subject to the Open Records Act. So when someone sends you that, a simple thank you to the sender will be good enough. You've got your packet. You should read it before the next meeting, okay? It's a great practice to do so. In our board roles and responsibilities training, we always tell you to do those sort of things, is to send your agendas, send your financial report, your meeting minutes to the previous meeting, all things that you can read beforehand before you go into a meeting. It'll improve your meetings that you do have and help you guys move at a much quicker pace. Okay, this practice can lead to violations of the act. Be very careful if you do this and you start talking about business in this. that can lead to a violation. Keep in mind, it's a best practice. Try not to do that. If you start talking about business in those emails, it can constitute as a meeting. Keep that in mind, please. Our next segment here, at any time in this video, if you need to stop and pause and re-go over some of this stuff, we encourage you to do so. We're just going to cover these things very quickly. So another big thing that we've encountered is executive sessions. What is an executive session? When do we use an executive session? Well, we're going to talk to you about that, and I just think a lot of people think that executive session is something that you just dive into because it's you kind of dive into an executive session whenever you just want to have a private conversation. That's actually not legal and not what it's for. So we're going to talk to you about what an executive session actually is. Just for a general rule, executive sessions shouldn't happen unless specifically authorized from Section 307A of the statute. This is to talk about personnel matters only, employees or staff. I know most of us don't in our smaller organization have employees or staff, but if there's any hiring or firing conversations that need to happen or disciplinary actions for employee or staff, you can go into an executive session to discuss those matters. That's an internal issue. You don't have to discuss that with the public. Purchase or appraisal of real estate property. If you're looking to purchase and there's a legal matter involved, you can dive into an executive session. Confidential communications with an attorney regarding pending investigations, claim, or action. Again, if it's a legal matter, you can dive into that executive session. Okay? Here's how to do an executive session. There's strict procedures for agendas. If you need reference, look at sections 307B, 307E, and 311BO. You must take a vote and have majority to convene executive session. Okay? Votes cannot be taken in executive session, and must take and keep minutes of the executive session. Okay? It might not be the meeting, things may not be open to the public, but though you do need to record the happenings in your minutes. Now this is some of the newer statutes. These are things that we look at again, and technology has changed for us. So teleconferencing is a thing now where we can have board meetings face to face with other people in completely other states, countries, wherever. I mean, we have FaceTime, we have Google Hangouts, we have different ways of doing this. So let's cover this a little bit. This is a new technology, and like we said before, they're not really as up to date with it as they should be, but they are trying. So it is permissible, but certain conditions must be met. You must have quorum at the agenda site to allow. Okay, so if you've got a board of 5 and you have at least 3 people there to conduct business and the other 2 can teleconference in, then that would be allowable. You have to make a notice. An agenda must have video site on it if you know you're going to have folks that are video conferencing in. Public must have access, which means you need to use a public format like a Google Hangout or something like that, Skype, where the public will have access to that. You can also do some live streaming on YouTube if you need to go in that route as well. No executive sessions can happen if you have a teleconference, as in the video feed would be public, so it really wouldn't do any good to have an executive session if you were to discuss personnel staffing issues. Okay? And it must be both visual and auditory. It can't just be visual. There has to be audio there to go along with it. They have to be able to communicate with you, to cast votes and do different things. So 1, they need to be able to be seen on the screen, and 2, they need to be able to be heard. Notice and agendas. You've heard me talk about that a lot during this session, but whenever you take a look at this, this is what we're going to, this is the procedures you need to follow. Again, if you have your little yellow Oklahoma Open Meetings and Records Act book, this is Section 25, Article 311, where you will find this. We're going to talk about agendas and notices. You should have one for all regularly scheduled meetings. You need to annually file advance public notice of all meetings by December 15th to your county court clerk. They will stamp that and notarize that for you. It needs to include date, time, and place. 24 hours prior to meeting, you need to post notice and agenda. We always recommend 2 public places, on the door of the facility where you're going to be having the meeting, and then a local convenience store or wherever someone will allow you to post it, place where you know people can see it. And also, social media now counts, so you can post it if you have a page on social media. You just need to make sure that it's put in a public place. And since Facebook is now a public entity and is traded and those sort of things, it does count as a public entity, so you can post those there. This includes Saturday, Sunday, and Oklahoma holidays. New business is permissible. Matter must not have been known or reasonably foreseen prior to time of posting the agenda. Okay. You really need to post your agendas 48 hours prior to your meetings. Okay. Give notice to appropriate office of date, time, and place. You should mail said notice to those who have filed a written request. If you have anybody that sent you a written request, wants to get on your agenda and those sort of things, make sure you get contact info because you need to mail them a copy. That's just good practice. 24 hours prior to the meeting, you should post publicly in prominent view. Post a notice, the time, date, and place of the meeting, along with the items that you will discuss on your agenda. This excludes Saturdays, Sundays, and Oklahoma holidays again. New business is not permissible here. This is for reconvening emergency meetings. Okay, again, if you need to look at this, it's in section 311A.10 and 304.6. Announce at original meeting. Emergency meetings must meet the requirements, injury to persons, property, or an immediate financial loss likely. Those are usually some of the things that you can have an emergency meeting over. There's no public written notice required. As much advance public notice as reasonable and possible under circumstances, including telephonic and electronic means. I know best practice is try not to do that, but in emergency situations you need to do what you need to do, okay? Let's dive back into our executive sessions. Now we're going to talk about notice and agendas. We talked about what the things we need to talk about in an executive session: legal matters, personnel, staffing issues, those sort of things. So this is how we go about that. It should contain sufficient information for the public to identify the items of business and purpose. Agendas must be worded in plain language that the public can understand. I know when we talk about legal matters, that's kind of hard to do sometimes. Sometimes we dive into the jargon and things used for legal matters doesn't make sense to everybody. So try to keep it in plain language as possible. Specifically states the subparagraph is section 307B, authorizing the executive session. If you have any questions, refer back to 307B in your yellow handbooks. Now here's a big one. Meeting minutes are very important. This is basically your record of having a meeting. A lot of people, if you're a new organization and you're looking to start a bank account, banks required you have meeting minutes approving the use of that bank and different things. So meeting minutes are the record that this actually happened and that your meeting happened. So this section is very important. Again, just a reference. Section 25, Article 312, if you need any assistance and need to look this up in the book. Requires written minutes including official summary of the proceeding meeting, okay. Identifies all members present and absent. You do that to establish your quorum in your meetings. It should identify all matters considered, all business that takes place. Don't talk about don't record the useless conversations that people might end up and gossip about somebody else, or talking about what they did over the weekend or whatever, but just all matters of business that are considered. should identify all actions taken, and the word action should be used consistently, and reflects manner and time notice was given. Okay, you need to record time and those sort of things. Minutes are open to the public, so don't think that's just for your use. The minutes are open to the public. If someone comes in and wants to request those, they can. You're liable within usually a 2-week time period, so reasonable time. You don't have to hand it over right then, but within a 2-week period, you need to hand those over to that or to the individual requesting those. Emergency meetings and recording meetings. Okay, let's first dive into emergency meetings. It must state nature of the emergency in the meeting minutes. You must include reasons for declaring an emergency meeting. Okay, again, we talked about that. It has to be an emergency situation. If it can wait, it needs to wait. In recording meetings, refer to section 312C here. Any person may record the meeting. Okay, it is a public meeting. It's open to anybody. It can be recorded, provided it does not interfere with the meeting. If you're making a nuisance of yourself and you're disrupting the meeting by recording it, then they can ask you to stop. Public comments is something that kind of drives board of directors crazy. But this is all up to the president. The president has to make sure that they run an efficient meeting and rules and regulations are being followed. Here's just some things on how to handle public comments. A public body is not required to provide opportunity for citizens to speak. If public body chooses to allow public comments, it is advisable to set clear policy. In the past, best policy that I've seen is to allow all comments to happen at the end of the meeting. Kind of limit the time that they're given, because there's those people that if you allow them endless time, they will talk endlessly. So set that, and whenever they're allowed to take the floor, make sure that they know that they're giving 5 minutes. That they're given no more than 5 minutes or whatever. But set clear policy from the get-go. You could limit comments to agenda items only. If it's not on the agenda, then there's no sense in talking about it. You can't take action over it anyway. If provided open comment, members must be careful not to engage in discussion. Okay, your point here is to listen to the individuals, voice their concerns, voice their input. It's not for you to engage in discussion, okay? Those are the main points of our training here. This should help everybody with the Oklahoma Open Meetings and Records Act. What's allowable, what's not, things to look for. This really sets an example. Here's our closing circle. I do this at every training. I'll continue to do this on the webinars that we're starting to do. But in the comments below, tell us your thoughts. Tell us your individual comments about the training, and let us know any questions that you might have. Okay, we want to know what you were able to get out of this and if it was helpful or not, so we can evaluate ourselves and get better as well. Here's a list of our CCO staff to contact, our contact info. If you need help with anything, give us a call, let us know. Here's a list of all of our folks and their titles and what they can help you with. If you're needing help with your nonprofit, keep in mind to contact any of those that say technical assistant specialist out to the side. We can help you with those things. If you need to talk to the director, Rob Doherty, his number is provided at the top. If you're watching this for TA credit, please complete the evaluation at the link provided. Whenever we put it up, there'll be a link look in your description portion of the YouTube video. Click on this link here and it'll take you to the evaluation. Remember, if you do not fill the evaluation out for your organization, you will not receive credit for this. Okay, so please fill this out if you're looking to get online credit. I want to thank you guys all for being here today. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was of benefit and help to you. Again, if you have any questions, my name is Chris Welch. You guys can reach me at 918-207-4953 here at the CCO office, or you can always email me at chris-welch@cherokee.org. Well done.